Yo, what's good? Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, we appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, we're going to open up the floor. We're going to do a mailbag because our loyal subscribers have some questions about the draft, free agency. They want to talk about how this Niners team kind of improves. So let's take your questions right now from all of our smart, loyal, and real one subscribers. We begin with Tyler O. Wise Guy, $5 super chat. I heard Kyle Shanahan in the past say that rookie wide receivers do one thing a day that makes him really mad and annoyed. Kyle knows how important Aiyuk is. And it's funny that you bring that up because Kyle Shanahan, son of Mike Shanahan, we know that. But when you're a coach's son who has been at the level of winning Super Bowls as a coordinator, as a head coach, who's looked at as a great offensive mind in the history of the NFL, you don't settle and you're not content with just being good. You want to be great. But when you're the son of a coach at that level, you're always pointing out nuances, little mistakes. And Shanahan has adopted that. And that's why he's become a great coach at the NFL level. Kyle Shanahan also used to train with some Broncos wide receivers back in the day. Rod Smith. And he's around some great players at the NFL level. Then he played wide receiver at Texas. And that's a really high level of football. And then at the NFL level, he was a wide receivers coach. He's been an offensive coordinator. He worked his way up to become a head coach in this league. And he understands that the little things add up, the little things matter. So he wants wide receivers to be great. Remember when Brandon Aiyuk was in the doghouse in 2021? Aiyuk, let that be known. Kyle Shanahan, let that be known. And look at how it's worked out. Aiyuk this year, it all came to fruition for him. Second team All-Pro. And I think the Niners are going to do everything in their power to bring back Brandon Aiyuk because drafted him in the first round. They've invested a lot of time into developing him. And they drafted him out of Arizona State after he was a junior college guy, envisioning him becoming what he became in 2023. And you think back to what the Niners have done the last couple of years. 2020 offseason, homegrown talent, signed George Kittle to a historic deal. Did the same with Fred Warner in 2021. Then they signed Deebo Samuel in 2022. Top 10 highest paid wide receiver money. And then in 2023, they made Nick Bosa the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football. I think they're going to do the same with Brandon Aiyuk. He's going to be a Niner for a long time. Patrick, $2 super chat right here. Sign Trent Brown and bring him back. A lot of people don't realize that Trent Brown used to play for the Niners. He became a really good player with the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots, and his contract was just voided by New England as they tinker and enter that rebuilding process with that roster. Trent Brown, really, really good player in 2023. And if the Niners don't want to address right tackle in free agency, or in the draft, they could address right tackle with Trent Brown in free agency. 579 snaps at left tackle for the Patriots this past year. 2 penalties, 3 sacks allowed, 6 hits allowed, 17 pressures, Pro Football Focus grade of 80.2. Run blocking grade of 80.7, and a pass blocking grade of 72.8. Attitude, a little bit of an issue. Work ethic, a little bit of an issue. But if you're succeeding under Bill Belichick with all of the demands that he puts on his players, you can succeed under head coach Kyle Shanahan. Look out for Trent Brown as a player who might be able to be had for an affordable rate. Mac Daddy, $5 super chat. If we don't use every single pick on the offensive line, I'm going to go off the rails. We've squandered so many Super Bowl teams because of bad offensive line play. And it's wild how the Niners didn't even draft an offensive lineman in the 2023 draft because offensive line cost them in 2021 in the NFC title game against the Rams. Remember when Aaron Donald ended that game? When Trent Williams was hurt? In 2022, it cost you in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. And then in 2023, it partially cost you against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I have 5 draft prospects who we talked about here on the show of interior offensive linemen, right tackles, left tackles, who the Niners could draft at number 31 overall, or players that they might need to trade up for in the 20s. Graham Barton at Duke. He played left tackle at Duke, but I think he's going to be a center or a guard at the NFL level, short arms. Jordan Morgan, some people don't like his arm length. I think it's fine because I think he's a lengthy player. He played offensive tackle at Arizona. Amarius Mims, not a lot of action at Georgia, but when he did play against Ohio State in the college football playoff, he was awesome and just a stupid athlete. Tyler Guyton, plenty of experience at right tackle for Oklahoma. And then Troy Fautanu, he played left tackle at Washington. Talked to him at the college football playoff in Houston. He said he's familiar with the Niners scheme. I think he's probably a better guard at the NFL level. He can step in. He could play right away. More of your questions coming up, but first, today's Niners Report is sponsored by Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app and the only DFS app that I use because they have the best deal. It's the easiest to use app, and it's just the best daily fantasy sports app. $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. You see some of my Major League Baseball picks going into the 2024 MLB season. Austin Riley, more than 35.5 taters. Freddie Freeman. I love this one. 26.5 home runs. I like the more there. Freddie Freeman, more than 176.5 hits. As long as he doesn't get injured, I think he's a shoe-in there. Ronald Acuna in that stupid Braves lineup from top to bottom, 1 through 9, more than 37.5 home runs. And then Aaron Nola, more than 195.5 strikeouts. Daily fantasy sports made easy thanks to Prize Picks. Pick 2 or more players, choose more or less. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Blazing to Glory 1, $10 super chat. Do you think Brandon Aiyuk just has the wrong people in his ear? I feel like he really wants to stay. It's not about that. Brandon Aiyuk carries himself the way that you want an athlete to carry himself. Works hard, cares about his craft. You don't have the footwork and the route running ability that he has without getting in the lab. Aiyuk's parents were Niner fans. Aiyuk grew up as a Niner fan. Blazing to glory. What this comes down to is not the wrong people in his ear. What it comes down to, leverage. Brandon Aiyuk was a top 10 wide receiver this year in a lot of different categories. He's entering the final year of his contract, 5th-year option, $14 million guaranteed. But beyond that, no financial longevity or stability. And him and his camp are trying to leverage the Niners into paying him on par with Deebo Samuel, 7th highest paid wide receiver going into 2024, and being a top 10 highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. So when they float things out there like BA to Vegas, BA wants out, BA wants wide receiver 1 targets, it's all about leverage in trying to uptick the future contract. Did anybody see how emotional Aiyuk was at his locker room during locker room cleanout day? He's crying, talking about how special this Niners team is. When asked what he wants to win a Super Bowl. Look, you can go to the Raiders if you want. They don't have a quarterback. I know you have that relationship with Antonio Pierce because he coached under Herm Edwards when you were there at Arizona State. But quarterback questions, when have the Raiders done anything? You know, under Kyle Shanahan, given the kinship, the camaraderie, the continuity that you now have with Brock Purdy, you can put up numbers, be productive, and compete year in, year out, and you're a fan favorite. It just makes too much sense to ask out. Jonathan Lamont Page, real one. I still think we go edge in the first round. Go quality offensive lineman in the later rounds. What do you think? This is a Niners team that likes investing along the defensive line. They could certainly do that. And it's funny how the Niners always seemingly need an edge, even though they've invested a lot there. Drake Jackson not hitting, that hurts them. Chase Young, they traded for him. So that goes to show you how they care about edge rushers, but he might be too pricey in free agency. If you go edge at 31, there are still going to be really good offensive linemen in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds where you could address the position there. I'd just like to get a bona fide baller And you do that by drafting an offensive lineman early. The good news for San Francisco is very deep offensive line class. Byron McCants, what's up, Chase? Not much, man. Just chilling with all of you. I know everyone is ripping the Niners for the heartbreaking loss, but what are your thoughts on 2 straight Super Bowls with no offensive holding calls against the Chiefs? A little bit fishy. The Chiefs in the regular season called for a lot of holds. Then when it comes time for the Super Bowl against a really good vaunted defensive line in San Francisco and an Eagles defensive line that led the NFL in sacks in 22 with 70, 15 more than any team, and there's no offensive line holding calls. When you have Patrick Mahomes, when the only formula to beat him we saw in the 2020 season, when the Buccaneers set the record for the most quarterback pressures in the history of the Super Bowl against a quarterback. They pressured him 29 to 55 times. Yeah, no holding calls for a Chiefs offensive line that's been kind of suspect. You had the turf situation 2 years ago for the Eagles. They couldn't find their footing. No holding calls. Niners, that defensive line, they were awesome in the first half. Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave. They were balling, man. It's a little bit fishy. I'm down to dive into a conspiracy theory. You know what's funny about conspiracy theories? A lot of them end up being true. That's all I'll say. Kevin Butler, what do you think about Jeff Ulbrich? I think if you want a defensive coordinator who has familiarity with the Niners, played there 2000, 2009, who has familiarity with Kyle Shanahan, was the linebackers coach with Atlanta when Shanahan was there as the OC, who has familiarity with the Niners scheme. He is the defensive coordinator for the Jets, Robert Saleh's scheme. A guy who's going to bring a lot of energy to the table. Jeff Ulbrich sounds like a good name. I'd rather go him over Nick Sorensen or any of the other internal candidates who are rumored to be the next Niners defensive coordinator. I like Jeff Ulbrich. If you're not going to go Bill Belichick, he's not a bad option. If you're not going to go Mike Vrabel, not a bad option. I'd go for the splash higher, though. Belichick, Vrabel, my top 2 options. Make sure you subscribe to us here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. If you want daily videos on the Niners, bang, bang, Niner gang, we got you covered here on the show.